Eid Mubarak, everybody, and welcome to Fourth Proposed. I keep saying this, Pakistan is not watching a distant war, or not a distant war as Pakistan is expecting. Pakistan is watching the collapse of an old arrangement while still being ruled by the people who behave as if the old arrangement will somehow save them one more time. That is why this moment is both interesting and dangerous. Interesting because a lot of ambitions have already been shaken by this war. Dangerous because compulsions remain. The people in power may be forced by reality to adjust, but that does not mean they have developed the clarity to adjust well. And in a moment like this, weak rulers do not just make bad decisions. They make delayed decisions, confused decisions, personal decisions, and then call them policy. This is where countries get trapped. My reading hasn't changed. America is caught in an escalation trap. If it escalates, it gets dragged deeper into war that does not have a clean military or political endgame. If it pulls back, it confirms what the world has already started noticing. That America, or American power is no longer what it used to be. Neither in military intimidation, nor in soft power, nor in alliance discipline or economy. You did see the tariffs fall. It didn't work. And Israel knows this. In fact, Israel is playing exactly on that weakness of America. Its objective is much clearer than America's itself. Israel wants the war extended, wants the region destabilized, wants a structure-changing outcome in Iran, and wants America to keep paying the bill for that ambition. And that is why every time diplomacy appears, some new strikes happens. Look at the Ali Larijani. Some new provocation appears. Look at Israel blasting at Iran's energy projects. Because Israel knew Iran will retaliate over Qatar. And that's what it happened. They burn all the bridges. Because a long war suits Israel more than it suits American or the whole world. For Trump, this has become a political and strategic nightmare. If he retreats, he looks weak. And Netanyahu gets to say, I told you. So Iran will become stronger. And that's what Netanyahu did. He said it before Trump that the troops are necessary in Iran in order to achieve the aims. And the aim is to restructure the regime, restructure the system in Iran. So if America decides to come out, Netanyahu will blame America if Iran gets stronger, because Iran is supposed to get stronger if America pulls out like this. So if America doubles down, if America goes all in, then American public, the American establishment, even parts of his own camp will say exactly what many are already whispering, that Trump is walking into Netanyahu's trap and being Tommy for Trump, or for Netanyahu. Trump is becoming Tommy. Netanyahu is becoming Daddy. Exactly like America is reacting exactly like a Israel subcontractor. And the deeper problem is this. America cannot sustain a long war unless two things happens. Either the Strait of Hormuz becomes functionally manageable again, which is not, or Arab states step in more openly and absorb the more cost of war and risk. So far, neither has happened in the way Washington wanted. So the Strait of Hormuz remains the central pressure point. Iran has made it clear that even if the war pauses, the Strait will not go back to the pre-war normal. And that alone changes everything. Energy flows, insurance risk, shipping calculations, inflation expectations, alliances behavior, all of it changes. This is not a side issue. This is the pressure valve for the whole world order. And this is where the American humiliation becomes more obvious. It is one thing to threaten somebody, it is another to actually restore order. Trump can shout all he wants, but if he cannot open or reopen the strait on his own terms, cannot make Iran stop retaliating, and cannot force allies into line, then the world is seeing something historic. Coercion without control, that is not hegemony, that is exhaustion on America's part. Look at the so-called allies. Europe is not eager to step in. Japan and South Korea are not eager to step in. Even traditional American partners are sending signals that they do not want to be part or being dragged into an open-ended regional fire. And why would they? They are already suffering from the energy and price shocks of this war. Inflation does not become acceptable to the public of those countries just because Washington says so, or the Washington says that the democracy is under threat somewhere. That's not how it works. If your own economy is taking a hit, your public is angry, your elections are vulnerable, and the strategic objective itself is blurry, then lip service is all you get. Real alliances discipline disappears. That is why I say this war is bigger than missiles and headlines. It is testing whether America can still convert pressure into obedience. So far, the answer looks increasingly uncomfortable. Now add China to the picture. China does not need to shout it out to stop the war in Iran. China will stop it. China will resist America. It only needs to wait, signal, and protect its own roots. Its interest is obvious. Keep the chaos from swallowing the trade architecture China needs in Iran, especially through this wider region and through any route linked to its long-term connectivity projects, which is OBOR. That is why Chinese concerns over both Iran and Afghanistan matters for Pakistan. If this war drags on and if Pakistan simultaneously opens another prolonged mess on the Afghan front, which was opened, China gets boxed into instability on multiple corridors. So of course, China is moving carefully, signaling carefully, and positioning itself as the adult in the room, while America looks impulsive and Israel looks maximalist. And this is the part some people still do not understand. If America eventually has to rely on Chinese mediation in this Iran war, which would eventually happen, or even Chinese leverages because Iran asked for the guarantees. So if America needs that to help stabilize any part of this mess, then the signal to the world is enormous. It means that the world order is not merely under stress. It is giving away to a bloc-based order where no single power can dictate outcomes the way it once did. So that's how China will secure Iran. America may still remain powerful. There is no doubt about it. But same America is over that before. That is the real story. Now bring Pakistan and Turkey into this. I'll come to Pakistan first. Pakistan's instinct, at least at the state level, seems to be stay out of this direct entanglement right now. That is the correct instinct. Not because the leadership is wise, but because there are certain realities bigger than the individual preferences, and that is what we are seeing in Pakistan right now. Pakistan cannot afford to fight Iran for Saudi anxieties, for American compulsions, or for Israeli ambitions. Pakistan cannot do that. Anybody who still fantasizes about Pakistan jumping into anti-Iran war under some Saudi defense arrangement is either unserious or living in a rented delusion. Pakistan has a border with Iran. Pakistan has enough internal fragility. Look at the Shia ulamas going around today. Pakistan has already lived through the poison of fighting other people's war on its borders. Look at Afghanistan. There is no strategic logic in repeating that madness, and yet the danger remains because compulsion creates room for error. The weak leadership creates room for error, and that is what worries me. Not that Pakistan wants this war, but that weak rulers under the external and personal ambitions and pressures sometimes stumble into positions they do not fully understand. And that is why Even the optics matter. One wrong tilt, one wrong signal, one attempt to please the wrong camp at the wrong time, then the cost multiplies and the power weakens and the guarantees weakens. The energy question alone in Pakistan should force a radical rethink. If oil stays elevated like this, if Hormuz remains unstable, if Gulf labor markets tighten, if remittances come under pressure because Gulf countries or the Arab countries will lay off Pakistani people like they don't matter after the war or during the war. If imported inflation accelerates, because we want to rely on the petrodollar, and that's the inflation will rise. And then Pakistan is not dealing with the temporary inconvenience. This could be the long war. Then Pakistan is dealing with a structural shock. Petroleum gets expensive, transport gets expensive, agriculture gets expensive, food gets expensive. The food crisis could arise. And we are thinking about sending our food to Arab countries. Mafias will enjoy that chaos. Prime Minister giving speeches about patience, austerity measures. That is not policy, sir. We need radical policy. That is denial. So yes, alternatives have to be explored. Alternatives in politics. Currency arrangements have to be rethought. Energy sourcing has to be rethought. The very dependency on petrodollar architecture has to be rethought. If the system that enforced those dependencies is weakening, which is America, if the system, which is America, who imposed or enforced those dependencies is getting weak, then survival demands flexibility. But flexibility is impossible when the state is still being run on personal likes, personal dislikes, personal vendettas, and personal guarantees. And this is where the internal Pakistani question becomes unavoidable. The world is changing, but is Pakistan's government mindset changing with it? I doubt it. That is why I keep warning that external dependency weakens. Another temptation arises internally then. The temptation to say, well, if the old foreign backers are not there, what they used to be, then why not redesign the domestic order even more aggressively? And why not experiment something new? Why not centralize further? Why not bypass politics altogether? That is exactly the kind of mediocre thinking that can destroy whatever opportunity this crisis might accidentally create for Pakistan. Because this long war will not suit any country. Any country would be stable, will be the best perfect choice for investment and for everything else. Pakistan's actual opening lies in the opposite direction. It lies in politics, not experiments, not military. In legitimacy, not shortcuts like going into Iran. In stability, not artificial control. In bringing the house in order, not in trying another constitutional stunt because the regional environment looks distracted. That is also why the Imran Khan question keeps coming back. Whether people like it or not, this is no longer just about one man. It is about whether Pakistan can create a political credible arrangement at a time when the external order is shifting violently. Can matters improve without a deal? Yes, probably, possibly yes, if pressures keep growing like this and the current setup keeps weakening like this. But the deeper point is that access to Khan, communication with Khan, and the reopening of politics will become a necessity before they become a choice. The longer this regional crisis drags, the more expensive internal denial becomes. And once access begins with Khan to restore political stability, that will be the first real sign that the compulsion has started overtaking arrogance. I still do not think that Khan simply walks into some neat compromise on their preferred terms. He knows too much of a system has been distorted. The issue is not just his release. The issue is reversal of the system, correction, and the terms of political re-entry. But even that is the part of the bigger truth. Pakistan cannot navigate a harsher regional order with a brittle domestic order. It just cannot. And let me say something else clearly. Pakistan's Afghanistan policy has also shown how dangerous confusion can become in a moment like this. If there is no coherent political aim, if pressure is applied without a defined end state, and if escalation happens without a realistic regional framework, then you do not get deterrence, you get negative or narrative damage, which is negative, ethnic hatred or resentment, which used to favor us before. The border instability and the endless bleed. That is not the strategy that should have been stopped before. But thank God they stopped now. Because this is country performing toughness. We were performing toughness while multiplying its future headaches at a time when Iran itself could have become the part of the wider regional chain reaction. Imagine if Iran had fallen, then Afghanistan would have definitely fallen if Pakistan had continued. Opening another front without clarity was reckless. China clearly understood that and stopped it. The question is whether we understand it. So where does all this end? My sense is that this war will eventually move towards some form of pause or containment. Not because anyone suddenly becomes moral, but because costs are spreading too widely. America cannot keep bleeding prestige forever. Arab states cannot keep taking hits forever. Europe cannot absorb endless energy pain happily. And even Trump will eventually realize that the theatrical power is not the same as strategic control. But even when this war pauses, the post-war world will not look like the pre-war one. That is the whole point. The old assumptions are breaking. America will not be viewed as the same way. Saudi calculations will not remain the same way. Israeli ambitions are becoming clearer day by day and therefore more frightening. China's weight is growing. Even when it whispers, bloc politics will deepen and Pakistan will either adopt like a serious state or continue acting like a hostage, trying to impress multiple masters while its own floor is collapsing. That is why I say the real issue is not whether the war stops tomorrow or the next month. The real issue is whether Pakistan understands what has really changed. If it does, then this crisis, despite all its pain, may still open a path forward for a more independent, realistic foreign policy and a more grounded internal reset. And if it does not, then the same old people will try the same old tricky tricks in a completely new world and maybe fail. And that is how countries miss history, even when history is screaming in their face.